Welcome back to the Inside Line IndyCar podcast presented by IndyStar. Sports editor Aaron Ferguson here alongside insider Zion Brown. And Zion, have you had any time to rest?
A little last night, but not after Sunday, not much. I remember talking to Felix yesterday. He got like an hour and a half of sleep, is what he said, which is still good. Got more sleep than David Malukas apparently got after talking to him as well. But, I got a little time to rest. But 2 days from now, I'll be driving up to Detroit. So it is what it is. We're here. But we just saw one of the best 500s, if not the best ever.
Yeah, the closest finish in Indy 500 history. Felix Rosenqvist surged past David Malukas in .0233 seconds. One of the interesting things that we had talked about Sunday after the race was what could Malukas have done differently? Like, could he have stayed mid or gone even higher up the track? And you asked him last night.
Yeah, I did. I was just curious what he thought about that last front stretch where he's trying to break that draft that Felix got. And I said, look, do you feel like you could have stuck it and kept outside on that very last cut inside? And he just feels like he would have crashed in that situation. You look at that final lap, there's so many moments where you're like, this could have been a disaster for all three of those guys who are in contention to win it, between Malukas, Armstrong, and of course Felix Rosenqvist, but they all avoided each other. With me watching the lap back, I look back to turn 3 as well with David Malukas, where he got a little high, I believe, and then instead of staying middle on that turn, and I think that kind of allowed that draft to continue from Felix, and allowed Felix and Marcus both to really stay in reaching distance of passing him. And then, of course, after Felix was able to pass Marcus in turn 4, he just got past Malukas at the start-finish line.
I remember looking at turn 3 live as we're watching it on the TV, waiting for them to make the loop back around to rush back to the window. And I remember saying, what are you doing? Because, I was like, David, what are you doing? I agree. I think that, I don't know if it slowed him down, but it sure seemed like it.
I don't know if it slowed him down, but it sped the other two up, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it just created a weird optical illusion, at least to me, where I was like, it seemed like he slowed down, but obviously he didn't. The other interesting thing that I thought when I heard David's comments about, well, we would have crashed, is what if you crashed and still would have pushed across first? Because it was so close to the bricks that I was thinking, well, even if you do crash, maybe you'd still be okay in terms of winning.
I did think about that too. You just can't plan for that. You can't say, I'm going to crash but still win. You can't plan for that, especially not in that split moment, right? That split second that you have to do it. And I think back to 2011, the Dan Weldon, J.R. Hildebrand finish where J.R. Hildebrand out of turn 4 hits the wall and he's just trying to still step on it to get to that finish line, but his car was done and Weldon ends up passing him for that win. So a moment like that, you can say something like that, but you have no clue what direction your car is going to turn in on that crash and how fast it will be able to get past that finish line, especially because in that situation, I think Marcus Armstrong, if those two crashed, if Felix and David Malukas crashed, I think Marcus Armstrong would have been able to get by both of them, and he would have ended up being the champion in that scenario.
Yeah, I think, one sidebar, I guess, is I went to the IMS Museum on Saturday, and I found just a greater appreciation for everything IndyCar racing, just because I got to do the simulator. And so when you're going that fast and it's okay, when you're going 230 miles an hour, it's easy for us to sit here and question the decision making, but when you're going that fast, that's why they prepare so much, get so many sims in, watch races, watch film, etc. Also got a feel for how heavy the equipment, the pit crew is changing tires and the guns and stuff, and I was like, whoa, okay, this you gotta be in the gym for this. But I think it's interesting because one of the things that I think nobody really noticed until post race was how close 3 through 5 was, and that was Scott McLaughlin, Pato O'Ward, Marcus Armstrong, and just some incredible imagery that fans captured with how close that was. And I think the most interesting of the 3 for me is Marcus Armstrong, because we sat there and we talked about it, I think, at the lap 7, or with 7 to go, the red flag. And it was Marcus Armstrong's just one of those guys where, I'll admit it, I didn't really know what all to say about him pre-race, just because, I don't know, it was not like he was doing anything exceptional, and he wasn't doing anything, non-exceptional. Like, he
Right.
was just kind of there. And I came over to you and I was like, we just had no idea what to say, and he might win this
Yeah.
thing. And then again, with 2 to go, he might win this thing. And then he gets there side by side with Rosenqvist for pretty much the entire last lap until he gets told to lift. And you could just tell, I know Jessica Garcett wrote the story, but our intern, and you could just tell that he was pretty dejected of like, yeah, being told to lift sucks.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was just like, you could just see the agony about even the fact that the restart happened. When we talked to him yesterday again at the banquet, he said he hadn't even watched back and got to see what caused that last yellow, which was Mick just barely grazing that wall in turn 1. But I'm curious to know, like, maybe I'll try to ask him again in Detroit, like, if you've seen that, do you think that even should have caused the yellow? Because he probably just wins, right? I mean,
Right.
you know, you never know. David Lucas had great pace. Felix Rosenqvist, obviously, in 1 or 2 lap scenarios, had great pace. So, you know, maybe one of those two would have made a push, but Marcus was in the lead. Mm-hmm. And, you know, without a restart, there's a very good chance that he just keeps that lead for the last 7 laps. Or really, at that point, it would have been just like the last 3 laps and got it done. Instead, it goes the other way from him, and it is a moment of dejection. And I can't think but to look at it and say this was just his third 500. And this is a race that over the last decade or so has been really hard to win early. Like, there were moments throughout the early 2000s and in 2010s, going back to Alex Rossi winning as a rookie in 2016, where some guys just were able to figure it out early. You look at the 2020s, it hasn't been that. It's been Takuma Sato winning the first one, and then it was Elio, like those 2 vets who had already won at least one going into that. Then it's Joseph Newgarden, who failed and failed and failed over and over until he won back-to-back. Same with Alex Palou last year, and then Felix, this was his 8th 500. Like, the Marcus Armstrongs, the David Malukases, the Pato Awards, even Scott McLaughlin, who's older than those guys, but still came into IndyCar around the same time. Like, it's just those split-second moments that I think the drivers like Felix, who have learned from those experiences that they've had, losing in those split-second moments, have been able to really come back and win it. So I don't know what Marcus could have done differently. I have no clue how that would have turned out if he didn't lift. Like, do we just see those 2 teammates crash and then finish at the back while David Malukas wins really uncontested? I don't know. But it's just a tough scenario for them to put him in. Or for him to be in, right? I'm not going to say they put him in that scenario, but you don't want to take out yourself and your teammate in that situation, but you want to win the 500. So I could feel the agony on him, maybe even more than David Malukas. I mean, David Malukas was more, I guess, devastation, whereas Marcus Armstrong was just anger. I felt like after that race, he just was kind of perplexed at how that happened. And it was a tough situation for him to be in. And you talk about that 3 through 5 finish as well. Like, did you see and hear the onboard and the radio from Scott McLaughlin's crew?
I did not. I heard Felix's, which was incredible.
Yeah, his
and
was
Malukas' too. But
with Scott McLaughlin, obviously Tim Cindric back as his strategist, and he crosses the bricks, and Tim Cindric goes, "I think we're P3." Like, he didn't even know, right? And then Scott's like, "Who won?" And he goes, "I think Felix." Or I think he said, "I think the 60." Like, nobody knew right in that moment. I think Felix knew in that moment because like you said, you heard his radio. They told him. But, like, from those guys that were behind, they were like, we don't even know what just happened for the most part.
Yeah, I feel like, because I know Felix mentioned this afterwards during the presser, and he's like, when I crossed, I didn't know. Like, he thought he lost. And, like, that's how close this thing is. And when you're coming down at 230 or however fast they're going, yeah, it's crazy. One of the things that I thought was interesting listening to Felix's onboard is, like, they're telling him to push the hybrid and deploy it. And, like, I was just asked this literally walking into the office. Like, I don't know that Malukas had any left, but I'm sure he was on the button.
Yeah, I'd have to imagine coming out of 4 he was, if he had any left. But I don't think I've seen his on board yet, actually. But I don't know if he had any left or what he had left. There might be a chance that he used whatever he had of it at the start of that lap,
right?
To even take that lead going into turn 1. So not sure.
Yeah, it was something I hadn't considered, even though I'd heard Felix's on board, and I was like, oh, that's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, the finish was incredible. Will Buxton, that's why he went and got him. His call was excellent. I thought the broadcast fit the moment. Just the, like, right push and pull of, like, when to speak and when not to speak, and let the crowd and the onboards like to just take care of it themselves. Like that was a really cool moment. Yeah, Pato O'Ward finished 4th. Like he just keeps getting so close, and I think when we were sitting there with 7 to go when they were red flagged, I was like, he's in a great position, but the broadcast talked about like I don't know how much fuel he has left, and it sounded like Felix had more than Pato did, and so like in that moment I was like, I think Pato's just kind of like he'll contend, but I don't think he's got enough.
Right. Yeah. There wasn't really a moment after Felix passed Pato or when Pato had to pit where you felt like Pato can win this race. And even at the end there, you didn't really see him. He kind of made a move, I want to say, on the backstretch, but there was never a real chance for him to get past those top 3 guys. Or he got past Armstrong, but not in a chance to like win the race. You know what I mean? So when we talked to him yesterday, he was just upset. He felt like he didn't have a car to win. And if you look at all of those Arrow McLaren cars, they felt like none of them really had a car to win. I guess Nolan Siegel had his career best finish, but even that is just a P11, right? So, like, it's not like he was ever in contention. He just was able to drive well enough to have his best race. But it's another year of frustration for Pato, and there's these 4th place finishes mean nothing to him at this point. Whereas, like, Scott McLaughlin the other day seemed pretty pleased. Like, yeah. I talked about this. I want to say I said it on the podcast last week. I know me and Nathan talked about it. Like, I think getting through 200 laps was just a big deal for Scott McLaughlin. And for him to do that, for him to barely cross that start-finish line before those other 2 and to finish on the podium, like, he felt pretty satisfied with that. And now I think he can completely put what happened last year behind him for every other time he goes back to the 500. For Pato, that's not the case scenario. For him, it is, if I win, it's a success. If I don't win, it's a failure. There's no in between for a guy who's been so close to winning twice, even 2.5 times, I'll call it. So it's another year of disappointment in his eyes, another year where it's like this one thing could have gone differently, and maybe he's in contention. But I don't know. I think this is going to be the story of Pato until it's not. Right? Like I think he will continue to finish, I don't know, somewhere between the top 5 and top 7 if he gets through all 200 laps and until he wins it. That's just going to be what it is. And I know Nathan wrote about how heartbreaking that place can be, centering Malukas, but also bringing up all of Pato's close calls as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, like the confidence level of different drivers coming out of this. Like I think David, when the dust settles, is going to be pretty proud of what he did, even though he come that close. And seeing the purse come out is like, okay, that cost him $3 million. But like even like in the end of the day, like I think he's going to win one. I think he's going to win multiple, but like he could win one, I think, next year. Are we talking
Pato or David?
David.
I want to say that, but I don't know that. I think he will win a race eventually. Like, we have to get there first.
I know.
He's not won anywhere. And I think we'll have a good chance in a week and a half, 2 weeks at Gateway. That's a place where he's done well. But, like, we have to get there first, I feel like, with him. And obviously he was so close to having his first win be at the 500, but you never know, right? 2006, I think when Marco Andretti lost in the similar scenario to Sam Hornish, people were like, okay, he's going to get one eventually, and he never did.
True.
Like, it's hard to just say that. I think David Malukas, for as long as he's in IndyCar, and especially as long as he's in that Penske seat, will contend for 500. But
absolutely.
It's hard to just, claim and verify that someone's ever going to win one. But that's kind of the mental thing for him is, once again, getting past that. And I think it's probably a good thing that he has Scott McLaughlin as a teammate, because Scott McLaughlin, obviously a much different situation, but experienced that heartbreak for this past year. And so maybe that can help him through it. Not sure what exactly that mentor-young driver relationship is between him and Joseph Newgarden, but like I just mentioned, Joseph Newgarden had time after time after time. I think he won on his 11th attempt at the 500, so similar thing there. But there's no verifying, there's no telling if he actually will get that win or not. Now, the good thing is he's in a Penske seat for the time being, and all of their drivers seem to win it, right? Since they returned to the race in 2001 with Elio winning it. I think it's the status 7 of 8 of the guys who have come and gone, and that includes Joseph Newgarden, and obviously it doesn't include McLaughlin and Malukas because they haven't left yet and they haven't won yet. But that should bode well for him. But I can't just sit here and say he will win one, especially because I haven't seen him win anywhere.
That's fair. I think he's going to win one. If the track at some point gets on his side, I think he'll win one. I mean, being in a Penske seat helps in a lot of ways. Like, I think that's part of my confidence level, but I think just the way he drives, like even though he has not won an IndyCar race, like you can tell the talent that he has, and I think he's proven that this year. Like I think there were some questions that some people had about him going to Penske and replacing Will Power, but I think you're kind of in an unenviable spot in a way because you're replacing a legend, and that's a high bar to live up to. But I feel like he has handled it about as well as anyone could, just in like random conversations in the media center. Just like, I don't know, he just has handled it very well. Obviously was distraught Sunday after losing by 0.0233 seconds, the closest margin in the race's 110 race history. It's not years, but you know what I mean. Crazy. Rinus VeeKay finished 6th. I feel like that doesn't get brought up at all. Like, really good performance for him. Alex Palou was behind him in 7th. Santino Ferrucci another top 10 in 8th.
Yeah, I'll start with Rinus. I think a comment that really went under the radar just because of everything that happened with those top 5 guys is I think Santino Ferrucci basically claimed that Rinus jumped the restart before the passing zone, and I haven't gotten a chance to look back at their section of it between Rinus, Alex, Santino, and even Roman Grosjean that was kind of in there. But Santino claimed he jumped it. Talking to Rinus last night, he was like, "No, I timed it right. I didn't know why everybody else was waiting. He felt like he didn't jump it." But the best finish of his career, I thought he had I asked him a question about basically how, besides last year in a race that he still didn't even finish, he just qualified poorly, but pretty much every year of his career in the 500, he has finished worse than he started. And I asked him about that. And he felt like in those years he was with Carpenter, he had so much pressure to try to win in the car, and now he just kind of went into it with a different mindset of not putting that much pressure on himself and just wanting to have a good race and see what happens. And so good for Rinus for the first time in his career to finish better than he started in this race. You talked about Alex Palou. He had that post-race penalty that wasn't a DQ that I know a lot of people, I'll be writing about this in a moment here, but I know a lot of people are kind of curious what's the difference between the 10-car penalty and the 90 of Prima and Callum Ilott last year. Essentially, it was, from what I've been able to gather, essentially with the wing end plate heights, they felt like IndyCar officiating, and obviously it's kind of a different crew or different leaders of those penalties, but they felt like his was more an out of maintenance thing in Alex Palou's case, whereas with Prima in the 90 car last year, they actually changed their wings from the pre-race inspection to the race, and so there was kind of a separator there, which caused the improper conduct penalty, and that's kind of the difference there. I know a lot of people going back to the push to passing are just going to claim that CGR and that 10-car are cheating. I'll leave that up to everybody's discretion, but I'll have a more thorough explanation of what happened there on our site. So below, obviously disappointing for him after starting on pole, but it's a top 10 finish, and he was in that pack all day. It was like that 4-pack of him, Connor Daly, Malukas, and McLaughlin, and on that second to last restart after the red flag, Malukas and McLaughlin to an extent were able to really push forward in a scenario that Palou wasn't, and Connor Daly surely wasn't. We haven't even got to him yet. Yeah.
Connor Daly, did he show up in his suit?
Yeah, and then the tie wasn't straight. I was kind of disappointed. Like after all the talk, you got to bring your A game with that. But yes, he did get his suit back.
Well, I mean, this is the guy who I had dinner at Prime 47 with my family, and he was at the table next to us, and he was wearing his own merch at Prime 47. So I think we can give him some grace there on the suit, I think.
I saw people joking that if he didn't get his suit back from the dry cleaners, he should just show up in his fire suit to the banquet.
Yeah, it's a suit. Better than a birthday suit.
Yes.
I think one of the interesting things that came out of last night was it was the first opportunity that you had to talk to Joseph Newgarden, who crashed on the lap 125 restart. He was coming out of turn 4 and just, sent it. And he did not talk after being seen in the medical center. The doctor came out and talked because he wanted to watch the end of the race, I guess. So didn't we all? But you got to talk to him last night. He was in a boot. Where's he at?
Yeah, well, first of all, him not coming out, I thought that was funny because I remember being around 2 years ago, and Will Power got in a crash, and it felt like he was inside that medical center for like, I want to say lap 140 to lap 180, and I was just standing out there waiting, and I was like, I want to watch the end of this race. Like, I hope he's okay first and foremost, but I was like, is he coming out or should I just go back? And he came out, like I said, somewhere around lap 180, I want to say, but I don't know. I thought it was weird that he just kind of got to skip the procedures of talking to the media. Like, he didn't even talk to Fox, right? Like, that was odd, especially for somebody who was released. Like, it's different, obviously, if you don't get released, but he was released. But then yesterday, yeah, walks onto the red carpet with a boot on his left foot. And, you know, in Joseph Newgarden fashion, we learned very little about it. But we learned that he plans to race in Detroit. So if anything changes on that, you know, we'll write about it. But he plans to race in Detroit. He didn't give me an answer when I asked, how long is the boot on? I have no clue when that comes off. He just said, until the cosmetics are done. So I don't know. Clearly he did suffer an injury, but it doesn't seem for the moment to be something that will affect him too much going forward. Although, you know, you get to Detroit and now you have to break back on the street course. So we'll see how that affects things.
Left foot or right foot?
Left.
Okay. So you got Rossi with the right foot.
Yeah,
Newgarden with the left foot. All right. Well, we'll see.
And Rossi again verified. I asked him on Friday about it, but he again verified yesterday that he's going to race this week.
Yeah. But he did mention, too, on Media Day Thursday that he got the procedures on his finger and his foot just specifically so he could race the 500. And it was hard to tell, like, from the question that was asked versus his answer, like, if he could have gone without the procedures, like, just normally for recovery. But clearly you want to race, and the 500 is so important. And so there was a kind of what we feared when we talked about, is he even going to be able to get out of the car? I remember Fox was going away from commercial. It was as Will Power spun out, coming out of pit lane. And Rossi's car was just like they just showed it for a second before going to commercial, and then it stayed on in the media center, the cameras, to see what was going on with Rossi. But it was 10 laps earlier they had showed what happened last year. And so people thought that's what they were showing again. And I was like, no, this is different. Like, I could tell just the way the fire and the smoke was, I could just tell that it was different from last year. And then I rushed to the window, and it was literally right outside our row. And it took me a second to even realize that he was in Kyle Kirkwood's pit box. Because when TV did come back, I saw the fire suits of the pit crew, and I was like, Andretti? Wait, what?
Yeah.
And Rossi did get out. He was able to exit the cockpit himself, and then as he was trying to get to the ground, one of the I don't know what role, but one of the pit crew members did help him support his weight getting out of the car, and Rossi hopped on one foot to get over the pit wall and everything, and fortunately he's okay, because I think that was a big question mark, is if his car does catch fire or he does crash, can he even get out and support himself? And you have to prove that you can do that before you can even be cleared to race. So clearly they thought he was going to be able to, and he proved that. Shout out Kyle Kirkwood's pit crew for helping him out.
Yeah.
But man, what a month for Alexander Rossi.
Yeah. There's a funny irony to that. To where he had to get out of his car, because those are a lot of guys he used to work with at Andretti.
Yeah.
There's a shot of him just looking up, talking to Brian Herta, who used to be his strategist at the beginning of his career, and he just kind of had the Alex Rossi smirk, I can't believe that just happened. But yeah, thankful that he was able to get out, and I guess shout out to Kirkwood's guys for helping him get out there. But just what a month, like you said. You go back to the GP and him just being stalled out right there on the bricks, and everything that happened from that, and then it felt like such a high when he was able to qualify second, and then to go from that to a day later having to get a procedure done, and the week that happened after that. I'm sure this is a month that he will largely want to forget, unless something triumphant happens at Detroit, because that's technically still going to be in May, which I think is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly a month that Rossi will want to forget. And He wouldn't reveal what happened with the car. He said it was a different issue than the fire last year, but he didn't want to get into what it was. And I'm sure between him, I mean, all three of those cars exited the race for ECR. Like, Carpenter's obviously was that contact he made with Takuma Sato. I don't know what happened to Rasmussen either. None of them really talked.
Mechanical.
Yeah.
According to the sheet I'm looking at.
And none of them usually they'll work to get a quote to Chevrolet. Chevrolet does a good job of, with their teams, getting those quotes in, and whether it's just taking them straight from the broadcast or for whatever reason they don't talk to the broadcast, find a way to communicating it. And when I say none of those three ECR guys gave a quote, we heard nothing about what happened. Right. We obviously saw what happened with Carpenter, but with Rasmussen and Rossi, it was just like it was such a promising going into it. You're like, okay, Rasmussen's great on ovals. Rossi qualified front row. Carpenter was just kind of in the midst there in row 5, and for none of them to finish the race, very disappointing day for them.
Yeah. I did notice last night that Ed and Takuma Sato got sat at the same table. Yeah. Did you talk to either of them? Did you notice anything there?
I talked to Ed briefly. He didn't really come all the way over to us, and Takuma, I don't think, didn't come on the red carpet. I guess the vibe I got was that Ed was still upset, but he's an adult.
Yes,
so he
he
sat there and played fair. But I don't think him and Takuma are going to dinner anytime soon. Is the vibe I got.
Interesting. One thing that I thought was interesting that kind of doesn't really have to do with the race itself is Danny Ricciardo just hanging out with Connor Daly this weekend, which I thought was fascinating. And then Lando Norris coming from Montreal to join them Sunday night.
Yeah. I guess Lando really wanted to be there, and with that's the closest that any F1 race is going to be to Indy, and it just happened to be the day of. So him and Pato are good friends. Obviously, Pato is a reserve F1 driver for that McLaren team. So, if anything were to happen to those two McLaren F1 drivers and Pato was not racing in IndyCar that weekend, he would technically be the guy to step into one of those seats. So I saw they were at that new McLaren racing shop yesterday, and Lando was doing the simulator for Indy and all that stuff. So, it was cool to see. I'm not sure what it means going forward. I don't think it is like, oh, he's going to do the Indy 500. Maybe. Lando's young, so he's going to have time to do it, but I'm not just like...
2027?
No.
369 days from now?
You know what? Actually, I think 2027 would be more likely than 2028 just because of the cars.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about, I think, before on this podcast. Still, I don't know if McLaren and Aaron McLaren would want to... I don't know how many cars they're going to... I assume they're going to keep doing 4 cars. I don't know if they want to go to a 5th, but even if they do, I don't know who those 2 options are. I feel like they want to run it back with Hunter-Reay, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see if Ryan's in Detroit, because I talked to him at Barber about how he's gone to every race, and I was like, oh, so you're going to be at every race all year? And he said, we'll see how the 500 goes. So we saw how it went, but it was more his fault than the car's fault in a sense. So
even though, I felt like we talked about this a lot, even though you and I had one show together, I felt like we talked about this a lot in the media center, that it just seemed like the McLaren cars were not up to speed.
Yeah, it did. So we'll see if Ryan sticks around, I guess, for the rest of this year. He's not that he was obligated contractually to even show up to all the other races, but he just did just to try to build that camaraderie. But now that obviously his contract is over, his contract to just race in this one race, we'll see if he sticks around with the team, what those negotiations look like with him trying to come back next year, because I assume he will want to come back next year. I got no sense from him throughout the first 2 or 3 months he's been around that he is on some sort of retirement tour from the 500. So I think he'll want to be back. The question is, will he be in an Aaron McLaren seat? But yeah, with Lando, it's cool to talk to him yesterday. Just you could see the excitement in his eyes from being around, and he kind of knows Felix. They're not close or anything, but he knew Felix. And once Felix was done taking all his Monday morning pictures on the track, those two kind of met up, and he got to congratulate him. And then TK took him for a ride in the pace car. So it was cool to see that. I know there were so many car fans that are like, why are we centering an F1 driver the day after the 500? And I was like, I don't feel like he's being centered. He's just around.
Right.
Are you going to tell Aaron McLaren not to bring him to the track? If he's around, they're going to bring him. So it was fun. I thought it was nice.
Yeah. The interesting thing I thought too, and you had mentioned this in the moment, is when Hunter-Reay crashed on lap 18. Well, there's two things I have to say here. One, they did light up the pylon for Kyle Busch on lap 18 like they said they would. My mom has photo evidence that it happened. Because in the moment I was like, oh no, this happened on lap 18. Like, they're not going to be able to honor Kyle Busch like he should be. And then the other was, the other thought I had was, like, you wrote this great story about how they brought in his NASCAR pit crew, and did they even do one stop? Did they even get one in? Nope. So, like, but, like, part of that thought too is, like, it kind of sucks for those guys. Like, they come here to the greatest spectacle in racing with an opportunity. I mean, I'm sure they've been here for Brickyard, but, like, it's different. Like, we all know it's different.
Right.
And they get a chance to perform like that. And, the only like, true, quote-unquote, competitive pit stop they did was when they beat Palou in the pit stop challenge that was a no contest in the end.
Right, and that's the thing. Like, I don't know if they would have won that, but, like, you upset the crew that is kind of seen as the best pit crew. Like, I think it's, between the 10 crew and the 2 crew of Justin Newgarden are the 2 pit crews that are seen as the best. And so for them to start Friday like that, and you're like, okay, like, this might be a real thing, and then they don't even get to do a pit stop. Definitely feel for those guys. I get the feeling that no matter who is driving that car next year for Aaron McLaren, that 4th car, that the Legacy Motor Club will be back running the pit crews. They just seemed really happy with them, and I know I talked to the director of human performance, I want to say is his title, Ryan Harbour, and he was like, yeah, if this goes well, we're going to like look into doing it full time and then kind of exploring how we do all of our pit stops going forward. So they didn't get to see if it went well or not, but I get the sense that those guys will be back, and I hope they're back, whether or not it's Hunter Ray or not, just because I think it's a cool storyline, and strategy-wise, I do want to see if that really changes the race in that sense with that pit crew.
Yeah. And that crash obviously ended Catherine Legg's attempt to complete 1,100 miles, the full double. She did make it to Charlotte, which was just an interesting conversation from the start, because it was just kind of like out of nowhere that she was going to start attempting the double. And it's like, okay, you talk about like the preparation needed to do both, and like I don't know. I was fascinated with how it was going to turn out, and then for it to end like that so quickly when it wasn't even her fault was just kind of a bummer to see, because I think it would have been great for racing if she got to lap 200, and then it's like, okay, let's see.
Yeah, and again, we go back to this, what counts as doing the double or not, because they didn't get through all 600 miles in Charlotte.
Right.
And she was a few laps down, I want to say, too. So she, even if they got to 600 miles, I don't think she would have got to the lead lap. But like, let's say she finished the 500, and then she goes to Charlotte, and then it's 512 miles or whatever they finished at in that race. It's like, does that count? Or like, you know what I mean? That would have been a funny conversation at the very least. But yeah, very unfortunate, because her car, it seemed like it was getting better throughout the month, like as they got more time on track.
Agreed.
Like we saw her in qualifying get to, I believe it was 27th, and that was with having the worst position of that day, having to go 33rd as the weather got worse and worse. Like, you know, if she goes in the middle of that day, I think she probably qualifies closer to 20 or 19 maybe. So it felt like they were gaining confidence in that car with that HMD/Foyt crew putting it together. But yeah, unfortunately, there's nothing she could do to get out of the way of Hunter Ray, and both their days ended. Those were the first 2 to be out of the race.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things we could talk about. I think where I want to go next is Kyle Collette. You and I joked quite a bit on teams about Kyle. But starting 32nd, he led 9 laps and was in contention when he sent it in turn 2 and hit the outer safer barrier and then caught fire, which led to the red flag there at the end. But I think, like, I was just really impressed with him all month. Like, I think he has handled himself really well. I feel like it's a new environment to a degree, because it's just a different series, different pace. You've got different faces that you're around. I mean, you're around a lot, but when you're an Indy Next driver, but I feel like he just handled this month very well.
I agree. I thought Kyle did a good job outside of the very end, right, where he just loses it, and his race ends with his car on fire as well. But for the most part, you go back to open tests until now, it was an impressive showing from Kyle. I'm curious to see. I hate doing this sometimes, but like curious to see if any team like sees what he did this month and says, okay, maybe we want to, quote unquote, pull him up from Foyt, or if that's maybe still a year or two down the line. But
yeah,
definitely somebody who I think this month kind of showed his potential at the very least, and proved on the biggest stage that he's capable of putting together some strong moments. Definitely next year, no matter what seed he's in, want to see him keep it together all 200 laps. But a strong showing from Kyle Collette. Can't help but wonder, like, would he have been in contention to win the race had he not gotten that car disqualified from qualifying? Like,
Yeah,
if he had actually started 10th, would he have been right up there with Felix and Pato and Marcus? Like, we never know. So, strategy obviously would have been huge in that case. But a strong month for Kyle. And I think if he finishes that race, he would have easily been Rookie of the Year. But you have that scenario. You have the DQ from qualifying, and I didn't vote for him. I think it was just hard to completely justify that with a guy who doesn't finish the race and doesn't technically qualify.
That's fair. My argument is he led 9 laps, and he was in contention until, like I think you're still because you're in contention. It's not like it's just a crash that happened, and it's not like it was early in the race. Like, you were sending it, you were pushing it to try and win, right? And sure, probably a mistake on his end when you end up high like that, but like Mick Schumacher, like, a credit to him, he did finish. He got through 200 laps. It's his second oval. He finished 18th out of 18 drivers who finished 200 laps, and he was 14.93 seconds behind the finish. So I don't know. I think it's a huge accomplishment for Mick to finish, though. Like, he's earned Rookie of the Year just by doing that, and to do it at a place where his father won 5 out of 8 Formula One races. Obviously a much different course and track for that, but like, in a lot of ways, like, I would be curious to hear from him just like what this experience was like, and in a place that that your father had a lot of success in. It's only your second oval, and it's the one that's the biggest event on the calendar all year, and you handled it like about as well as you could, save for the hitting turn 2 that caused the last caution that may or may not have needed to be a caution, but that's a whole separate debate. I think he earned Rookie of the Year, and he certainly proved, I think to a degree, proved his staying power.
I agree. That's the funny thing about Mick. Like, I think he affected this race twice at the very end, obviously causing the last caution, but even when he was lapped, you mentioned him being the last of the guys on the lead lap. When he was lapped, I can't remember what lap this was, but he kind of just darts past the leaders, right? I think he darted past David Malukas to get back on that lead lap. And it was just like, at that point, that kind of slowed down the leaders and kind of grouped them together even more. And so, like, in two different ways, for whatever, I don't want to say for whatever reason, like, I understand wanting to be on the lead lap, but he affected this race quite a bit, which I thought was funny and cool to see in a way. But like you said, good for him to get 200 laps in. There was so much talk about the comment he made at the open test about it. I forget how he worded it, but he just seemed unimpressed, I guess, by the 500 and by IMS. And then he had to kind of clarify. He just wanted to do it with the fans there and, get the full 500 experience. And he got that experience, and he got through the whole race, which a lot of people didn't think he would.
Right. No, I agree. And he finished right behind Christian Lundgaard. So, now not right behind time-wise, but place-wise. Man, Scott Dixon sat there at, what was it, lap 124? Was that when they dropped the red?
I think it was a little before that. Hold on, I have it right here.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't remember, but he was sitting there.
116.
Yes, okay. Yeah. I have it too. I just didn't think to look.
124 is when they got back on track.
Yeah.
Back to the green.
But, he's sitting there on pit lane, and you hear his wife, Emma, before, or I guess Fox was probably in the commercial, and like there was a hot mic on her, and she's like, I think I saw lightning, and then they talked to her about it, and Will's, was it Will? I can't remember who it was. I don't think it was Will, but someone was just like, well, I've got bad news for you. It looks like we're going green here in a minute. But Scott was sitting there in the lead, and man, like that would have been crazy if that's where, like, if the storms just came together and just stayed for a while, it would have been crazy to end it like that.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody would have wanted to see that race in that way. Maybe, of course, Emma, I guess, would have, but like, I'd be curious from even Scott Dixon's perspective, like, would that feel the same getting your second 500 win in that fashion, like just on a red flag where we don't get to resume the race? Like, I feel like the answer to that is probably no. If you were to ask him, like, surely he wants to get the second win, but when you say you want to get it at any cost, I don't know if that is the way you want to get it. Like, it's similar to like Takuma Sato, his second win just being with no fans. He still did the full 200 laps. It still was the Indy 500, but it definitely felt different than his first win in 2017. So I'm glad they got back on track, and just another instance where his car all year hasn't felt like that top tier number 9 car that we're used to, because as soon as we got to that restart, it was game over for Scott Dixon, right? Like, it's not like he finished 8th after that. He finished 15th. Yeah. Like, it was just, he could not keep up the speed once we got to that restart. And yeah, that whole scenario, that those laps, 90 to 124, where we got a couple of cautions due to rain. And it started with the caution because of what had happened to Will Power and everything, but we got a couple of cautions there, and you didn't know. That's why Joseph Newgarden crashed on the restart, is because his crew really felt like, we've got like 20, 30 minutes. You've got to go. You've got to push it here. Yep. That didn't end up being the case, right? We got through the race, but that was certainly something strategy-wise that teams were trying to figure out in real time. When is this rain coming, and is it going to be enough to end this race?
Yeah, and I feel like you mentioned it. It just seemed like they cycled through like different onboards too, and they're like all giving different answers to their drivers, and it was just like, okay. And
these strategists, they're really great, but none of them are meteorologists, right. So it's just like everybody's
Neither
playing the guessing game. Yeah, neither am I. I had no clue what was going to happen.
It was really interesting early on, because I know like weather is always a big deal, but I always said like, do not push this thing to Monday, please, because like I feel like IMS didn't want that either. Like the logistics of getting more than 350,000 people in and then out and then do it all again. I don't know how many would have stayed, but it still would have been a lot. I feel like that would have been crazy. But I remember early on in the morning, before like anything happened, I pulled up the radar just to see, because like I was just like, all right, are we even going to start this thing? Because there were some dark clouds that came through during the live show, which I don't know if you even saw.
No, we did. I was sitting there. I can't remember who we were interviewing. I want to say it was either Tony Kanaan. I think it was when it was Kyle and Santino next to me.
It was.
Yep. And I was just like, guys, you see the like in the middle of the interview, like, you see the sky right now? Like, it doesn't look great. Yeah, I remember that though.
Yeah. But I remember pulling up the radar. It was after the show, and it was like there were two, like, Speedway was right in the middle of like two just like parallel storms. Yeah. And I was like, wow, like, what a blessing this is.
Shout out Mother Nature. She knew not to give us another 4-hour delay.
Was it Mother Nature or the track? Which one spoke louder there? I wonder.
Man. I'll say the track, because I said this with Nathan. Mother Nature actually seems to hate the double. Yeah. Like, every time somebody goes for the double, there's some sort of weather element, right? You go to the last 3 years, it's been that way. And then even some of those ones that happened in the late 90s and early 2000s, they were somewhat affected by weather. So Mother Nature is not a fan of trying to do both races on the same day.
Yeah, seriously. Gosh, we've been all over the place. What else? What are we missing? We're missing a lot. We can't get to everything. But what else did you want to bring up or talk about or highlight, whether it be from yesterday at the track or afterwards at the banquet, or from race day or from practice or qualifying? Gosh, there's been so much.
Two come to mind from on track. We kind of breezed past it when we talked about where he finished, but Santino Ferrucci, again, in the top 10. 8 years in a row. No one's ever done this. I don't know if a win is coming in his future, but like, he is one of the most consistent Indy 500 drivers ever right now, right? Yeah. When you look at his track record. Very impressive for him to just find a way to stay in the top 10. There's never really a point in this race where it looked like he would have a chance to win, but he just stuck around. Like, I remember right after the second to last restart, the one after the Kyle crash, I just looked over at Nathan Brown and I was like, Santino's going to finish top 10 again. Like, we haven't said his name. We're not really paying attention. He's there. So kudos to him. And then Will Power. That 26 car has just been his worst enemy all year long. And again, just I don't know. I don't know why that's been the case. Like, when you look at his car and even Ericsson's car, I don't know why they've been so much worse than the 27 car this year that Kirkwood's gotten to drive, but it just has been the case. And another situation. I think if you go back to every issue Will Power has had this year. I think the crash in Arlington in qualifying was the only one where you look at it and say that was just Will's fault. Like he lost it there and that was his fault. Everything else, it's been the car. Like, it's not completely on him. So I don't know.
Yeah, glad that you brought Santino up because he was one I was thinking about. Like, okay, if a seat at McLaren or somewhere else opens, like, would he be one that they think of to move up? Even though, like, he spoke last year about how happy he is at Foyt and really just, like, doesn't even see a chance of him leaving. But, like, because of his 500 success and consistency, I often wonder, like...
I get where you're coming from.
And I'm not saying McLaren. I'm just saying, like, any other team.
I get where you're coming from with Santino, but he doesn't do well enough on everywhere else. Especially, I mean, he struggles on road courses.
Yeah.
Street courses are iffy, and then... this oval he does great on, but the other ones he's just okay on also. Like, it's like, are you really gonna put in that investment for the hopes of winning this one race? If it happens, it's a big payoff. Like, I know Felix Rosenqvist is in a contract year. Mike Shank told us that about both of those drivers in St. Pete, and so I don't know where Felix is gonna go. I think he'll stay there honestly, but. He's going to get a big raise wherever he is, whether it's with MSR or somewhere else. Like, so that's kind of the risk you take in a situation like that. But, so you could get the payout from that. But I don't know if another team would look at Santino and say, just put all their chips essentially into just trying to win the 500 because even if he's in a quote-unquote better car, I'm not sure if that means he would compete for a championship or even really a top 5. I can't get myself to get there.
That's fair. Felix was obviously another one I was thinking. It's like, okay. He certainly has earned whatever he has coming to him.
Another like post-race conversation me and Nathan had. The only thing is that with him, if you were talking about moving teams or whatnot, he's been with Ganassi. That's not something I think is going to find. I think Ganassi will have the same 3 drivers next year. He's been with Aaron McLaren. That's definitely not going to be a reunion there. So it's like. Does he fit Penske? And I lean toward no, like personality and just overall wise, I lean no. And so that's why I kind of feel like I look at it and say he'll probably just be in that same seat, which is good. Like, I mean, you look back these last 5 or 6 weeks, this is what I wrote about in my follow-up when I got to talk to him one-on-one yesterday. He's been the best car. He's been the best car and the best driver going back to Long Beach. He wins the pole at Long Beach. Would have won the race if not for that caution, or probably would have won the race if not for that caution. You get to the GP, he qualifies in the second row. He causes a wreck in turn 1 of the race, and he crashes again later on in the race. It wasn't a good race day, but still qualified well again. And then we get to the 500 again, qualifying on the second row and winning the race. Like they have a lot of great momentum between Felix and that number 60 crew right now, and I think it'd be kind of foolish on either. Obviously, Schenk is going to want to keep him, but I think it'd be foolish on his end to just try to chase something else, whether it's a better car or whatever the money difference would be. Like, I think this, at least for one more year until we get into the new car in 2028, I think this should just remain a partnership between those two entities.
Yeah. Curious how fatherhood shapes that decision too. Like,
right, he's moved. He lives in Indy still, but he moved from Carmel to Indy. So congrats, I guess. But like you said, if there's a Penske seat open, and if that you'd have to move all the way to North Carolina. I don't think he wants to do that. And Schenk, they actually let a lot of their staff like him. Although they're based in Ohio, they let a lot of people like him live in Indy, so that's not an issue there. And so, I think he should be comfy where he's at, and I think both parties should really, probably in this next month and a half, work to ensure that he's back for at least one more year.
Charlotte is nice, though, I will say.
I mean, it's nice, but you just moved.
Moving sucks. That is also true. Connor Daly, man, I feel bad in a lot of ways. Like, you could tell he was very disappointed because he looks great for a lot of the month, and then it just did not come together. I think part of it's strategy. I mean, he really did look good in practice. He looked good at the open test. He looked good at qualifying, and it just didn't come together for him on race day. Yeah,
another year where it's just like, what happened, right? That's kind of been the Connor Daly story the last handful of years, the 500. It's like, what happened to where we seemingly were going to be in contention to win the race, and it's one thing to be, Pato or, the situation Malukas was in where it's like, we could have won. Connor Daly finds himself in these situations where it's like, I don't even know where he lost it in the last 30 laps, the last 40 laps. That's just kind of how it's gone with him. And so to have the month he had, to not finish top 10, I don't think that was representative at all of that car or of him throughout the month. Like, history's not going to really tell the story when you just look at finishing 12th in this race for him. So definitely a disappointment. We'll see what happens as we get into silly season if he can try to secure a full-time ride. But if not, I would certainly expect him to be in that same seat next year with Ryan Reinbold.
Yeah, he did lead 4 laps, and he also had the fastest lap of the day. So definitely had some speed, just didn't have enough. Anything else 500 you got, or can we go to Detroit?
Yeah, I think we can go to Detroit. I think I've covered most of the bases between the two of us here.
So Detroit, you leave in a couple days. We were just talking about how, like, we're all sitting here at the office. Clark Wade, our producer behind the camera, is like, man, we just feel sad. Like, it's just post-500 depression, almost. Like if I go to a sports editors conference and, like, I leave and I'm like, man, that was so much fun, and now I got to go back to normal. I think that's how we kind of all feel. But you, the teams, the drivers, the series, Doug, you guys all have to be in Detroit. You're probably arriving later than some of them, but like IndyCar's probably already at Detroit in a lot of ways. So how do we get over the 500 and just turn the page here?
Yeah, it's a hard move on, and it's not a place where the winner of the 500 has done well. So I'm curious to see with Felix, after having the strong performance he did on our last street course in Long Beach, how he can turn it around and parlay that into this week. But it's a quick turnaround. And everybody has to kind of put behind the joy or disappointment that you experienced just a few days ago, and get ready for another race. So Kirkwood comes in as the defending champion. Definitely feel like he could use a good result after, back-to-back weeks outside the top 5. Like, he started the first 5 races being the top 5 every week. Yeah. And then between the situation that happened with him and Palou at the GP, and then this week just not qualifying well and not really ever being a threat in the 500, I definitely feel like he's somebody who could almost try to capitalize on this opportunity where everybody else has this hungover effect of like, oh, I could have won. Or in Felix's case, man, I won. That was great. Like, he has this mindset of, well, that happened. It sucked. Now let's get to Detroit. Like, he never really had a chance to win. So I'm curious to see if Kyle Kirkwood, who has now fallen back behind David Malukas in the championship, if he can maybe retake that second and potentially, I guess, that first spot.
I liked how Felix on Sunday was asked about Detroit, and he's like, I'm not thinking about Detroit.
I thought that was interesting. He kept getting asked about it. Like, I was just like, I get it. But, like, there's no way in the world after winning the race in the fashion that he did that you have any thought about them next week.
Yeah. I mean,
at that moment, an hour later.
I think it's a fair question because, like, we're sitting here talking about it. Like, how do any of these drivers turn the page that quickly? But, like, Kirkwood, this is where we had the Plower move, right?
Yep.
Last year, where willpower in practice is just like, I'm going to push you through. And
that's the thing about Detroit. Like, people are just tired and they do weird things. Like, like the way we saw that drama the week of the GP, we could see that kind of resurface in Detroit. So, curious to see if anything along those lines happens.
Yeah, I remember the GP was, like, very heated. And, like, Nathan Brown was like, this usually doesn't happen until, like, St. Louis because you're together for 6 straight weeks. But this is, like, at the start. So where are we going to be? And it's like, yeah, where are we going to be come Detroit? Like,
it's a shame that, like, Takuma Sato and Ed Carpenter aren't racing anymore, right? Or else you'd be like, is something going to happen there? Or even, I don't think there was a lot of animosity there, but Catherine Legge and Ryan Hunter-Reay, like, the same thing. Like, I know she was very upset about what happened. But like I said, no animosity necessarily, but, like, can we see that resurface? Like, the 2 biggest driver-to-driver incidents we saw in the 500 are between 4 drivers who won't be racing this week.
Yeah, you mentioned that is, like, a lot of the incidents that did happen were just, like, one-off drivers. So, like, no big deal, I guess, moving forward. But people are going to be, short on sleep. You're short on rest because of just the magnitude of this month and the quick turnaround to get up to Detroit, the logistics of that, to even getting there and getting your stuff loaded and then unloaded. And Yeah, it's going to be crazy. I guess we have to make picks, right? I'm going Kirkwood.
Really? Okay.
For the sole purpose of this is
man.
kind of like where he thrives, and I have not thought about it at all. So I'm just
it's a street course, and it's Kyle Kirkwood. I'm not gonna pick Kirkwood because you picked him, and because he's defending champion of this, right?
Which is fair.
You know what? I've picked him before this year, and it has burned me every time. Like between picking him to win or picking him to win the pole. I'm gonna say he keeps the momentum going though. I'm gonna say Scott McLaughlin.
I like that.
I think, like I said, he just seemed to have come out of Sunday with a really positive attitude.
Yeah.
Just needing that result that he got, and I think he carries that into Detroit.
I think another interesting one could be Lundgaard.
Yeah.
Talk about he's like very similar to Kirkwood, where he just like was never competitive. They both finished. I mean,
They finished right next to each other?
yeah, Kirkwood was 16th, Lundgaard was 17th, and Kirkwood had him by 1.1 seconds. So like they both had just very similar races, and I feel like very similar months. Of course, Lundgaard won the GP, so a little bit different there. But yeah, like either of those two, I would feel very good about going into this weekend.
Yeah. And I want to see, with Lundgaard's teammate, Pato O'Ward, it's been a fine season, but, dude, he hasn't been on a podium. 7 races through, Pato O'Ward has not even been on the podium. And he got back up to 5th in the championship, but it's all right, we got to pick it up at some point if you want to, get back up there with Malukas and Palou and Kirkwood. You got to pick this up at some point and start to win races and certainly start to get on the podium. So I'm curious to see if this is a week where maybe Pato finally breaks through for the first time all year.
Yeah, I was talking with one of our coworkers in the lobby when I got here, and she is from the Detroit area, and I was like, "Oh, surely you're going to this race, right? Go see your family or whatever." And she just dropped this line of "disenchanted in Detroit." I was like, "That's a bar. Print the T-shirts." Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be a weird race, I think. I love Detroit, by the way, so I'm not actually trying to magnify that phrase, but my folks also live up there. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be fascinating. There's just so many different variables. One of them being rest and who can get any. I know I talked to Doug and his security guard while Doug was on the show on Sunday. And I was like, "Oh, how much have you slept?" And he's like, 0. And
to be fair, that feels like Doug 24/7, 12 months of the year, but certainly during May, I'm sure it's even worse.
And I asked, I was like, "Well, when do you guys get to sleep?" He's like, "Tuesday." So here we are. Hopefully they're getting some sleep before they head up to Detroit. But man, that's just how this month is. It's a lot of long days. I was thinking about all the time I spent even just driving to and from the track.
Mm-hmm.
Not even on race day, just normal days. It's around an hour and a half, round trip. So that can wear on you. Man, it's been fun though, and exciting. And I think the post 500, I don't want to call it depression, but
that's a bit too far for me to go. You can speak for yourself.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not that, but it is just now what,
yeah.
And so that stinks, but it does make, I know, speaking for me, I know it makes me more engaged with the series. Cause now it's okay, how do all these different storylines or chess pieces play out the rest of the year? And other people I talk to feel the same way. So
what I would say to that too, I know this has become just kind of the way it is, but I almost wish they could find a way to follow it up with an oval.
Yeah.
Maybe move St. Louis up that one week in Gateway and then move Detroit back. Or Milwaukee the last couple of years has been the second most exciting oval. I don't know if they could find a way to move that from August to late May, early June, but I feel like if you just watch that, right, every year we hear the people, "Oh, that was my first time either at an IndyCar race or watching one on TV." And if you just watch that and then this next week you go to Detroit, not that Detroit is boring, but it is just oh, this is different than what I watched last week. There would be any way for them to remedy that with a back-to-back ovals, that'd be great. But, for the time being, this is just going to be how it is, with Detroit being the follow-up.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because I've never been to Detroit for a race, but I know they get a lot of publicity and excitement around the race. Obviously, Detroit has the auto show, and there's always some activations with IndyCar there as well. And so, Detroit's very passionate about the race. I think the difference is like there's not like a great vantage point to see the whole race or like see a lot, and so like if you're going because you love the cars and you want to see it and you want to be up close and personal. But like honestly, the viewing experience I feel like is almost more enjoyable from home. So like I think there's some of that too that's interesting. But I mentioned my family lives in Detroit. I was gonna ask my parents or my siblings if they were gonna go, just since it's there, and you know they've been my mom and brother have been the 2 straight 500s now, so they definitely have the itch. But yeah, I'm curious to see where we end up.
Yeah, and then the other issue with if you tried to move Detroit, it is we haven't even brought it up, but it's another one of those joint IMSA weekends. So you would have to coordinate with IMSA to see if they're all right with moving the race or so. Yeah, I'm curious to see the vibes, like how everybody is once they get on track on Friday, and you know who's really kind of feels hungry to put whatever happened behind, or who just seems to kind of have that layover and can't really pull it together. But yeah, I'm excited in a sense that you get to almost forget about the 500 so soon and kind of rewrite the story of the season. But now we're in this stretch where we talk about the championship every week, but now it like matters.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense. Now it's like, all right. Right now, it's really just those top three that seem in contention. And so if you're Christian Lundgaard, if you're Pato O'Ward, if you're Joseph Newgarden, who's just hanging around, now's the time. Like, you got to put it together. Also with Marcus Armstrong, I didn't realize that till this morning. I saw the weekly graphic that Fox tweets out of the championship and the points. He lost 40 points by going from first to fifth there on that last lap. That is the difference from him currently being 10th to him being fifth, and he would have been fifth with 1 point behind Christian Lundgaard in fourth.
Yeah.
Like, that was a season-altering 2.5 miles for Marcus Armstrong. I'm not sure where he's going to finish, but surely that set him back. He wouldn't have competed for a championship anyway, but, like, you talk about at the end of the year, if we look at him and he's sixth, and you're like, not sixth, or if he's eighth, and you're like, man, he could have been fourth or, third or whatever. Like, that could really be change his season. Once again, in a contract year, change contract negotiations. Like, that just, I'm sure he doesn't care, right? David Maluka said the same thing about moving to P2 in the championship on Sundays. Like, I don't care. So I'm sure Marcus Armstrong doesn't care in the moment, but a lot changed for him in that one lap.
Yeah, and I feel like Rosenqvist is only 7th, so like, it's not like
right,
he moved a ton. But
because Felix, I talked about the last 5 or 6 weeks, how great it's been for him. He had not finished in the top 10 of those first 4 races until Long Beach. And then, again, finishing 23rd, 24th in the GP. Can't remember where he exactly was. I think it was 23rd in the GP. So he has only 2 top 10 finishes, but they happen to be winning the Indy 500 and another podium finish coming second in Long Beach.
Not bad.
Yeah.
I think a lot of drivers would take that.
Pato O'Ward right now, he's talked about this. Pato O'Ward would take that.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Obviously, he does want to win an IndyCar championship at one point, but he wants to win that 500 even more.
Yeah, and he's been so close. But soon we're off to Detroit, and yeah, you've done great work. I don't know how you're going to keep it up on short rest, but here we go. This is the job.
Yeah, look, like I said, Felix, I talked to him yesterday. He got even less rest than I did. Like, it was funny. There were a couple times in our conversation he like zoned out and he was like apologizing. I was like, dude, like it's whatever. Like I get it. So if he's back out there, if David Lucas is back out there, I will too.
Awesome. Well, he's Zion Brown. He's our insider. He travels just about everywhere with IndyCar, or to cover IndyCar, I should say. He brings you interviews behind the scenes from the medical center, elsewhere, especially on the YouTube page, IndyStar TV, IndyCar. You can find him there. Like, subscribe, tell your friends. A lot of stuff that you can't get from the broadcast. And yeah, he just has his own analysis too from the weekend. Yeah, doing a tremendous job. IndyStar.com. You can find all the words there, reaction, insiders, a lot of great work. I know Nathan Brown has some stuff coming too that he spent the month of May reporting, and as he put on Twitter, 4 years in the making. So yeah, go subscribe to IndyStar.com, subscribe to the YouTube page, follow Zion on Twitter, and anywhere else he wants you to follow him. And yeah, until next time, we will talk to you soon.